Hey everybody, welcome back to an exciting episode. Today I am super pumped because my next guest that we're featuring is actually someone I've been following his journey for I think a little over a decade at this point, and he's accomplished quite a few things, had some awesome partners over the years, and has now spun off one of the coolest SaaS platforms and tools, especially for e-commerce brands that's been around in a very long time. And I think it's going to be really interesting to not only hear about his journey and what he's done to get there, but also talk about some really amazing tactics and techniques you should be applying to your e-commerce business, and also sort of what it's take for him to grow this awesome SaaS platform. And he said it before we hit record, but sort of the how he's gone up against these behemoths, the sort of David and Goliath story, which I think is going to be really fun. But without further ado, Jimmy Kim, who is the CEO and founder of Sendlane, super excited. Jimmy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Samir. Thanks for having me here today.
Would love to just have you kick things off and tell us a little bit about Sendlane in general and what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. We can start on the Sendlane side. So obviously, I think I like to say there's two layers of this entire thing about what's Sendlane. So Sendlane today, we're an email and SMS marketing automation platform for e-commerce, right? We model our product for brands. We call them mid-market brands doing about $1 million to about $100 million. That's where our sweet spot is. That's how our tools build for, and that's the merchant that we build our tools for. Doesn't mean you can be bigger or smaller, just where we really focus. So that's what we do today. And Sendlane in the future, and what we're working towards is, as a former merchant, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, but as a former D2C merchant retailer, I learned a lot. And the biggest thing that I was so tired of was not the fact that email and SMS, and that was one of the catalysts of like the fact that they weren't available, right? SMS is kind of newer. Email was much more where I come from. But the bigger catalyst was the amount of tech and tech tool stack that was starting to form in the market as I was a Shopify brand owner. And that actually is what I'm out to solve. So I built email as my foundation, but the vision is unification. So today, email, SMS, reviews, then yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to spill all the beans now, but I can spill reviews because I don't know when this podcast goes live, but between now and the next couple weeks, it'll probably be live. And the cool thing about it is it's competitive to your favorite tool over at Yotpo or Kendo reviews, all that stuff. But because it's a feature for us, it's actually free to use. And it doesn't matter how many orders you have. You can use this tool to do it. And you get to unlock a ton of new marketing tech features that you probably aren't using today, like dynamic abandoned cart reviews, dynamic reviews across anything and everything that you're doing, right? You automate the UGC. So like they give you a poor rating, then you can automate a lot of things and tasks behind that. We're basically unlocking the things that you can't do because your integrated tech is not allowing you to do that today. So that's the vision of Sendlane, to give you that future vision. We're looking to consolidate because in 2020, we hope that it's Shopify and Sendlane, BigCommerce and Sendlane, right? Having that simple integration, simple hub where you can actually see your entire customer lifecycle. And that's when you get to truly solve marketing problems, when you actually know what's going on. Because right now you live in a disjointed world of disjointed data, and as much data and as many great tools you have, they're still disjointed somewhere. And that little thing, that little tweak that you might not know, it might be everything that you needed for your business to take off the way you want it to. So that's kind of the bigger vision, broader vision. But today, typically our client comes from Klaviyo and Attentive, for example, Klaviyo PostScript, some hybrid of that. They come over to unify their stack, get a better customer service, better experience, a better product, more tools, feature sets, and then of course, ultimately a price savings too on top of all of it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 punch, we like to call it. You know, it's very aha moments for many people of things that we do on our platform that you just don't do, or we've simplified the really annoying things that you have to do on Klaviyo in the UX and UI department, right? We're kind of taking a little bit of I like to think about the whole MailChimp constant contact battle, and I think that we kind of live that same similar mantra against Klaviyo here today. So we'll talk more about that later too.
Awesome. Love it. But much better than both of those, because MailChimp and Constant Contact, let's just put that plug. If you're on either of those platforms, you should switch right now.
Yeah, I mean, they carved away 20 years
True.
ago, and they're great for 20-year-old businesses that don't need or grow or have online presence. They're great for those tools. But like if you're getting into e-commerce, you should get a focused one for sure.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, reviews, amazing for conversion rate optimization. One of the top things you should have in your tool belt. We should definitely, we'll get into that. And yeah, I mean, I hate when I go into a Shopify store and I see 30 plugins and half of them aren't even being used anymore. And this one's disconnected from this and integration to this, and got to use Zapier to get from this one to this one.
Got it.
Yeah, love the holistic view of being able to integrate those and build all the segments and all that kind of stuff. I know we're going to get into some real fun technical stuff that I'm excited about, but I'd love to just tell the audience a little bit about your journey, because you've had a very interesting one over the years. You mentioned it even that, right, you've been an e-commerce retailer, you've been in email marketing forever, as long as I can remember, honestly. And yeah, and so I'm so curious, like, what's that look like over the years, however, much you want to kind of get into it. And then how did you get into the Sendlane side of things as that unfolded?
Yeah, I'll tell you the story. So I'm a Washington, D.C., I grew up in Washington, D.C., but I'm actually Korean, and I came here, immigrated first generation. So when my parents chose the place to live, I grew up in Washington, D.C. So that's where I'm from. I live in San Diego now, but that's where I'm from originally. So I grew up, did this school thing. And ultimately, for me, the coolest, interesting thing about it was I never finished school. I never finished school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was coming out right at the dot-com bubble. And though I wanted to get in computers, it didn't make any sense. So I tried to switch, tried to do a bunch of stuff. But what I really discovered is I loved sales. And I remember my first career, I'll talk about my first career, was in car sales. I started off washing cars. I came back one summer, there was no jobs to wash cars. So I ended up selling cars that summer, did really great, and never went back to school. It did so great that I moved up the chain over the next couple of years. I became a finance manager, finance director, and ultimately a general manager at the age of 25 of 3 Saturn stores over in Maryland. And so I went really fast and grew there, and it was really cool. And honestly, it was just pure dedication, blood, sweat. It's not intelligence. It was just pure dedication, working probably and killing myself 80, 90 hours a week. But I did it because I knew what I needed to do and I knew how to make it work, right? So I did that for a while. And then, of course, the next recession happened in 2000. That's when my next kind of shift in life happened. I realized that I like to do things on recession bubbles. So if there's another one coming out, maybe there'll be another shift.
Hey, those are some of the best businesses spin off,
Yeah. So car business implodes, recession hits, and I need to make a shift. At that time, I knew this guy named Anik. He was a friend of mine, lived about 5 miles down the street. We used to hang out. Never did I ever ask him what he did for his life. I never just didn't care. We were friends. We weren't like business guys, right? We were friends. So one day I was like, man, I'm so tired, dude. I work so much and I make great money at that point. We're talking making $4,000 a year at 25, right? That's pretty good money at that age, right? It's still good money today, but it was great money back then. I was very well off back then, right? And so what's that called again? I told him that, it's not fulfilling anymore. Like I'm tired of the grind. I want to go do something else. And I told him I've always wanted to do my own thing, but I don't know what I want to do yet. So he said, you know what, Jimmy, operational stuff, how to run a business, how things operate. If you can come here and teach me how to operate and kind of run and structure and kind of be better at the things that we can help me on, I'm better at the creative and visionary. You go do that. So essentially I came in, president is what we called me. And we came in and we basically cleaned up the business. When I joined the company, I had $1 million of debt. My first mission was, let's go clean up that $1 million debt. So we did. And over the next 2 years, we cleaned it off the cap table, got the company back in profitability and grew on. But during that time, I also got what I needed, which is to learn the inner workings of digital marketing business, learned everything. He was into PPC, affiliate marketing. He was into email marketing. He was into, selling products. I latched onto email. I was like, man, this is the coolest thing in the world. If I can build an audience, a tribe, a member of people, and then I send an email out, people will do stuff and then they'll come in, right? This is the wild, wild west back in 2000, but it was beautiful back then because I was like, you have a list of people, you send a targeted newsletter, kind of like an email or like a direct response piece, but in email format, and you could get people to do stuff. So it really turned on a light back then. So we did that for a couple of years. I worked there. I learned a lot. We sold a lot. We had some huge product launches we did together. So I learned a lot. And some of the things that I did back then even still live within that business today, which is really cool to see. But with that came to my entrepreneurial side. At that point, after a couple of years, getting the company in a really great place, I went to Anik. And as we agreed on from the beginning, now I'm off to do the journey. Right. So my first company I started was this company. It started as an affiliate marketing company because I was just an affiliate. I would just collect big email lists and then I would mail offers, right? Very simple. I'd run SEO stuff where I would arbitrage keywords and basically have review pages up that would third party myself. Nothing different than people are doing today, but this was innovative back then, right? Cookie stuff and all the stuff that we did back then was innovative. It's not anything today, but we were learning all
the
that.
Ones that were even setting the stage for a lot of that stuff. I mean,
exactly.
I was following Anik and you guys back then, and it was, it was like
we were content creators.
Intro. Yeah,
before content creators were cool.
Literally, yeah, that was my intro to affiliate and marketing, I think, way back in the day, honestly. So yeah, I mean, it's how could it not be appealing for you to go and jump ship and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that basically we started doing that, and that business eventually became a product business. I started teaching people how I was doing things, and then I eventually evolved into a software business. Now, during that time, I had a friend. He had a storefront, a retail storefront in Las Vegas, and he needed money because he had Pacific Sunwear or someone come to him and had a PO. go. And he didn't know how to fund it. It was an 8-year business, a retail storefront. And I said, hey, I'll give you the 50K. We'll put together a loan, yada, yada, yada. And so after I did that, I went back into the business a couple weeks later, and I was just talking to him, and I was just learning about the business a little bit more. I gave it out of blind trust. It was just a friend, right? But at that point, I said, let's go look at the business and go learn. And when I learned about it, I said, hey, you guys have this really cool direct-to-consumer brand, like your own product that's actually selling really well, and you're solving a simple problem. And now today, again, it's normal. It's called Basics. But back in 2012, it was like cool, right? Basics was not it. We were in a different world back then. So I saw that and I said, let me just become a partner. Let's just convert my money into a partnership and let me come into this business because I want to help build and run it. I want to operate it. I want to market for it. And I believe I could do really cool stuff. So that's what I did. And that was like 20. I got involved. The first thing we did, of course, is we went in and I installed the Shopify store, because that's what we need to do. Because if you're not online, you're missing money, right? Well, that online story changed really fast. One, we dropped the boutique side and dropped most of the brands. We went full force on our own product and our own brand. And 3, we became a direct to consumer and eliminated the storefront and mostly focused on the e-commerce side. And we were basically typical store, like paid ads, dropping $7, $8 CPA, running and thumping, right? And we scaled that brand pretty quickly and pretty fast. We went from a 0 online to, $1 million or 2 and skyrocketed right to 10. And like, we've kind of moved really fast on it. But then we ran into our creative differences. And this is always something you'll learn in business and everything else. Our creative difference is very simple. He's a designer. He's a creative. He has very beautiful visions and he can see the future, but they don't like money. And I'm a capitalist and I like making money. So like that really was an inherent problem that we had between us. He always jokes back. He's like, I don't know why I stopped you. And I was like, why'd we have arguments about you were selling out too fast, right? Because I was selling everything. We were literally selling out of clothes in the store, which was awesome. At least
good problem to have. Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the learning there, but that ultimately spun me off. Now, during all that time, while I was doing all that, we had a problem. And this is where Sendlane comes into the story. And it's funny because Sendlane wasn't meant to be Sendlane. It was meant to be a tool because we were frustrated with all the tools out there. MailChimp, GetResponse, Aweber, Infusionsoft, Constant Contact. These are all the legacy platforms that still exist today and still are still have customers on them. But a lot of those platforms lack. In fact, a lot of those platforms are not very different from they are 10 years ago, in fact, or 12 years ago at this point. And so back then, 3 of us, myself, Anik, and Zach, we kind of decided to build a little platform. And that's kind of the platform we started building. And that platform was internal, wasn't front facing. We weren't selling it at first. We were trying to be good about it. And we used it for 2+, 3+ years at that point. And then eventually we said, you know what? We should build some front-facing stuff. We can probably make this a business. And then when 20 hit and this whole thing where I was bored of my lifestyle business, which is funny, I look back and I don't know why I got rid of it, but it was a great lifestyle business. It made $4 million a year, but with like 8 people, it was great, but it wasn't fulfilling. And then I had this other business, the e-commerce one, that wasn't actually making us money because we were scaling, but we were having these differences. So that was my hard pivot point. I said, I'm going to go all in on Sendlane in 20, and that's what I did. And we pushed on Sendlane right away. And what's that called again? I started to build with it. And the first thing I had to do was go raise some money for it. It took me quite some time. I raised some money, a seed capital fund, so that I could raise money so I can go build the future for e-commerce. So then we put our heads back down, 2019 to 2022, rebuilt the entire platform ground back up just because we knew and understood our customer, what we wanted to build for. And that allowed us to raise our Series A. And that's where we raised our Series A. And then we were off to the races again over the last 2 years since. And it's been a really fun journey of finding product market fit, finding our journey, understanding your customer. But I still today inherently lead product, still believe in what I believe in on the product and the thesis. And what's funny is it took very long for people to start seeing that problem. But today that problem is more or less existing. And I think I'm really well positioned for it right now, which is where I'm very excited and bullish about our future, because our vision is literally solving the biggest problem that I see in the next 2 years occurring in the merchant space, which is tech stack. And that's really much what I'm focused on here. Less just being better than Klaviyo, better than Attentive. That's just part of the journey, right? Anything new tech is going to be better, in my opinion. That's a total different thing, much different that I'm actually out to consolidate the future of what MarTech really means and eliminating, and I hate saying that, but I want to eliminate the need for all these tools. It's just crazy. And that's really what we're doing. So that's my journey, man. And that's how everything kind of started, from car sales. I've done software. I've done education. I was a content creator before they thought it was cool or you went to school for it. I did it a hard knock way. I've built multiple I've done all that fun stuff, and I've sold a lot of dollars online, and it's been a magical experience to be able to build a career and life over the internet. And, it's still one of my favorite things that I don't think I would have ever done this growing up. And I've always wanted to be, I had the typical path, and it's been humbling humbling. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey, man.
Love it. And I love the background too and the history of your story and what you've done too, because I think I see too many entrepreneurs kind of jump into whatever they're being sold by whatever guru, right? Like just spinning off a Shopify store or becoming an affiliate or whatever it is. And it sounds like it's so easy, and it can sound easy. And I think the basics of it are really easy, but you built this ridiculously strong sales and marketing foundation that enabled you to be as successful as you are, right? Enabled you to really go in any direction that you wanted because you had the fundamentals down so well that you're like, hey, okay, I know how to sell. I know how to market. I know what it's going to take. And I think I see so many entrepreneurs almost skip that step, if it makes sense, right? Like they haven't done any of just like the background, and then they're so focused on, well, I'm not doing revenue, I'm not getting enough revenue in, but it's like, hey, what have you learned in sales? What have you learned in marketing in the last few years to actually build the most core foundational piece to this puzzle? I feel like that, we so often I see internet marketers and all types of entrepreneurs ignore.
I think people glamorize how fast some things grow and businesses grow, and they always aim at as that. We're entrepreneurs, are competitive. We want to be best, right? And we all ultimately end up aiming for a lot of those. And the reality of things is, and as I look back to Jimmy, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and I look back, the number one piece of advice that I would tell people is, there's a lot of advice that I would tell, but when it comes to this portion of the talent side, would have been just don't try to hire to teach, to learn. And what I mean by that is very simple. Go find someone better than you to come teach you this skill. You're an entrepreneur. Your level up is watching someone execute on something and you learning from it and bringing it back under you and being better than about it, or just good enough ultimately. But there's things that you just will never be good at. It's unnecessary to own, and you should focus on building your team, not because some playbook or some guru told you how to build your team. You should build your team complementary to your weaknesses as much as you can in the earliest days, because that's all that really matters. Who gives a crap who the CEO of a 5-person team is? Honestly, it doesn't matter anymore, right? It's just a title at that point. We're all got hands on deck. So if you're doing it that way, you've got to think about, hey, I need people who can do the things that I can't. Like, for example, me, right? I'm a fire starter. I'm not a fire keeper on and put it outer. I'm a fire starter. And what that means, or I'm a fire put outer. I only like to do the last or first action. I don't like the in between, right? I don't like the details. That's okay. Hire people who like the details, so take care of it. And my team, for example, now I've got a great team that handles the details that I hate, right? That's how you have to put yourself in the right bubble. So yeah, it's been, I forget where we started on this topic, but we probably went off on a tangent, but.
No, I love it. Yeah. Just talking about the background and I love it. And so, I'm curious on the Sendlane side now, because I know you're talking about some of it. Hey, that's table stakes. We got to make sure that we have these core attributes. And then you're like, hey, we're going to make it work better. We're going to make it, because I think that was certainly one of the things that MailChimp always did the best job of, right? Just having like a good looking platform. And I think, and great marketing and branding, whether it had the segmentation, whether it had even good delivery, all the kind of important aspects may or may not have been there. But I'm curious, like, how, as you've grown Sendlane, because I know you guys focus a lot on customer service, which is amazing, because I think that's, to me, one of the elephants in the room with Klaviyo is you got to be spending a lot of money per month to even get anybody at all, to talk to anybody there. So I'm curious, like, what are those key differentiation points that you feel like have allowed you to push the business forward and help Sendlane kind of stand out? Like, as you said, because you've got all these legacy clients and you've got these legacy businesses that, like, you, when you're starting out, you have to come up against.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of things that we stand out against, our competitor, I think, but to just kind of go through your line of points that you kind of started off with, like, let's just talk about the ease of use, right? I think that, people take things for granted when we say just ease for use because it sounds so light and fluffy, but here's really what I mean by that. And this is what I want to explain. We developed a platform that has this vision that was always about unification. So a lot of our platform feels with inherently places that we're already, so when we add things onto it, it doesn't feel like they're on top of each other. In the market today, everything that it does work, like we're talking about, sits on top of each other, right? That's actually a really big problem. So you'll never clear your UX issue without a complete platform rebuild. You can never fix when they've just been added on. You have a car and you want to add another wheel on it. You can't just add another wheel on it, right? Well, that's what's happening right now. So there's this inherent market size. So that ease of use, that's important. Everything feels the same. They all work congruently. They look the same. They touch the fit. Everything is just fluidly the same. That's really number one. Number two, you kind of touched on it, customer service. It's not, I don't think it's as much as customer service and just the simplicity of customer service. It's the way that the customer service is treating and handling. right? And what I'm talking about is we don't use templates, for example. We don't teach them to use templates. We teach them to actually use their mind and answer with a thoughtful response to the exact question they're asking for, because it actually resolves the question faster and satisfies the customer faster, right? It's how we run good CSATs in the business. That's definitely one that we have. And then we have feature differentiations. Another reason why people might come over, for example, one of the coolest features that we have, and we built it not on purpose, but we built it because this is how I would have done it as marketing, is we're multi-store enabled. And what that means is you got 2 Shopify stores, one in the US and Canada. You don't need 2 Klaviyo, you don't need 2 Sendlane accounts. You need 1. You connect both, you multi-attribute, you multi-segment, you can put them together, you can pull them apart. You can do that on our platform. And you don't have to have this complexity of, did they buy here? Did they buy there? Did they do this? Did they do that? Right? Simplicity, right? So we think about that. We have a ton of other features that we have, from, like, as I mentioned earlier, solving all the weird nuances of like a dashboard, or like the ability to look at a campaign report and not have to click 17 times to look at it. More weird things like, why do I have an automation flow? And anytime I want to change a trigger, I need to stop, duplicate, and create a new one. That's silly. All those things are silly, fundamental, broken things. And then we get to pricing. I think the biggest thing that people start noticing about us is that, and we haven't released it yet, we're about to release it, but it's all about usage. I realize that e-commerce, you can't say the number of contacts. The number of contacts is an old adage based around newsletter mailing. E-commerce businesses do not operate the same way. They're not contact-based companies. They're usage-based companies. Yet we're not marketing in that way. So I am changing the way, I hope, in the market, the way that merchants are starting to view how they should be paying for their SaaS, right? It should be based around, what are you using? Not because you have an arbitrary contact number, because you want to keep historical data of your customers. You should absolutely keep those. So for us, it's unlimited contacts. Contacts don't matter. And you'll hear about this more this summer in the market, I'm sure, as we start chanting it, but contacts won't matter. It's all about email usage, right? It's all about what you use. Same thing with SMS. Pay for what you use. It's a pretty simple mantra, right? And if you've got a good product and a good tool and a good customer on the other end, they're going to use your product because it makes you money. So why wouldn't you? It's an ROI generating tool, So that's kind of some of the things that make us unique. Of course, the unified future is very much important. Reviews coming up, for example. There's just cool differentiators, man. Like just the fact that everything's unified. There's no integration, so there's no data disparity. There's no data loss. Things are real time. They're all working under one roof, and you have more moderation and more. There's all sorts of ways you can approach moderation. We made it so that we're not judge and jury here as a company. We don't care. It's up to you, your business, your operations. If something happens, it's on you. So it's, how you want to do that. I know that some companies have strict moderation rules, and I get it. But at the same time, it's not my job to be the judge and jury, right? Same thing with even niches and things that we work with. We often work with brands that are not mainstream and people don't like them, but we don't mind. Again, we don't care. So we have a friendly attitude towards a lot of these things. I think these are important, especially as we walk into a political year and IPO, right? There's a grooming probably coming up for Klaviyo on their customer base. Same thing, right? So, we think about all that. So that's really where we're special and different, I think. The core of our company is really around marketing and email and e-commerce. And we have a lot of that inside of the company, a lot of experience within the company, a lot of people, former guys that are in that space. So we just see the world a little differently, and, we hope we stand out. And we think the market's big enough that there can be plenty of people in the top there. And I think that's where it gets really interesting.
Love it. And so SMS, who should be using it? Who shouldn't be using it?
Dude, SMS is, okay, it's very simple in my opinion. SMS is broadly being accepted across everyone. But where is it being more accepted? The younger generations are much, right? Here's where SMS is really it's really interesting, the perception that people that won't put themselves. And I'm going to challenge everyone and that listens to this podcast to think about this. Think about your demographic first, okay? Is your demographic into SMS? And the older you are, the less you're going to say you're into SMS, right? But you're the one making the decision often for the actual demographic you're attacking. Is your demographic younger? The younger they are, the more they're into SMS. In fact, they don't even care about email on some level. So you need to be where your audience is, not where you want to be or how you look at it, okay? So then second thing is I challenge people and I say, all right, that's fine. Let's talk about the second part of thinking about this. What if you were able to add very simple SMS strategy? I'm going to give you 3 simple ones. 1, I put a snippet on the bottom of my emails that says, I have a text club. Just if you want to join, text me in with this keyword to text in to join me or tap on this button, right? 1, action intent. Very clear they want to be a part of your list, right? 2, you could also do it on an opt-in page or pop-up page. It should be optional. Don't ever force it. Put optional or put an opt-in page on the bottom of your page, whatever you want to do. But on your website, make an optional text. You'd be surprised again how many people want to be alerted this way, right? And then 3rd, it's a reply setter. A lot of people forget that SMS is not meant to be a batch and blast. It's actually supposed to be a two-way communication center. Think about SMS as a different way. Don't think about it as, oh, I want to blast and like annoy people. What I say is, and I think there's an old adage with some of the software companies that push people to just batch and blast their SMS. But to me, SMS should be used to intent. I send an email at 4 p.m. at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., let's just say. By 10 a.m., I can take all the people who've clicked but did not purchase and send them an SMS and say, hey, don't forget to make that purchase that you just looked at, right? It's intent driven. Or, hey, my sale is ending at midnight, for example, right? So at 5 p.m., I might send an SMS out to respect quiet hours, and I would go out there and say, hey, my sale ends at midnight. Grab yours today. SMS is a nudge, a push, a movement. It's a support system for the email side often. It's not the leader. It'll never be the leader. People will still convert. Most of your conversions, I challenge everyone to pick up their phone. Most of your shopping happens on mobile. Conversions happen on desktop. It's human behavior. Just empower it. Don't fight against it or try to change behavior. Empower it. So I go back to that SMS side. It's very simple. Try it, test it, do little things to test it and put it out there. And even if it's not your belief, remember yourself who your audience is. And if your audience is into text messaging, you should be into text messaging if you'd like to keep selling them business. Very simple.
Yeah, and it's so easy to start, and like you said, just test it a little bit, see how it works. I mean, you get amazing results over pretty much everything else. Open rates, click-through rates, everything else. And like you said, you're not going to necessarily message them as much as you're going to email them, right? But you could do so much fun stuff with the segmentation. And I think that's, to me, where, to your point of having the everything in one platform is so much more beneficial, because I think that's where we had a lot of problems with clients. Like, they use Attentive or something like that, right? It's like, okay, now we've got this segmented list, and we want, if they take this action, then I want to have this happen and XYZ, and then that all gets lost, right? Yeah,
no, the data
they're completely separate, right? It's multi-channel versus omni-channel approach, correct, right? Very old school marketing tactics here, right? But it's like so important.
That's what I keep telling everyone. We went backwards again. SMS took everyone. Batch and blast email. We're doing batch and blast SMS. But this time is different. Back in 2012, when we were batch and blasting, we didn't have the tools that we have now. So why are we still doing it? We literally went backwards. It's like getting the wheel, and the wheel was starting to run faster and faster. And now we started to put blocks in it because we think the wheels are going to speed up somehow. That's how I look at it.
It's true.
It's very true, man. Technology, unfortunately, at the end of the day, technology leads a lot of this stuff. But technology definitely created an interesting little bubble.
Yep. Wow. How deep do you think e-commerce brands should go when they're like setting up email and SMS and whatnot, right? Like you've got so many aspects to it, multivariable segmentation and being able to run experiments and being able to do all these aspects, right? So, I mean, there's the basics that everybody knows, of course, right? You should be running your abandoned cart. You should be getting your new newsletters out. You should be getting your subscribers in, like all that kind of stuff. But then how deep should brands go, and like, what's too deep, right? Like, obviously, if you're sending a segmented list of like 5 people, maybe that's a little bit too narrow of a segment. Maybe not. If you're selling a 4th product, maybe not, right? Like, where do you think, where does that go?
It all, okay. This is such an interesting thing because I talk about this pretty often with customers. It's interesting, right? When you have a founder, CEO, someone who's like pretty like inherently deep in the company, they care a lot more about their marketing, especially the retention marketing early on. As you see brands that are like 10, 20, 30, they start caring less and less, right? I get why. Yep. But at the same time, there is a reason that I see that. And I think it's interesting. And I've been kind of analyzing it because, as founders, we try to eke out every little penny out of everything we do. So here's my advice. And this is, again, subjective to however you want to look at it. I focus on the 80% because honestly, at under $10, $20 million a year, the 80% is good enough that you're going to operate. Okay. So we're going to go run through the 80%, right? Number one, it's your flows. We all know the regular flows, your welcome flow, your abandoned cart flow, your pop-up flow, all those flows. And make sure they're more than one email, maybe at least 2, 3 emails, right? 2, 3 emails, couple SMSs, sprinkle them in, right? Those, number one, very simple. Number two, it's just audience management. Man, everything is the core of email, and it always has been, even if I zap back, is audience management. What I mean is very simple, right? Where are they in your system, right? Now, old adage, list. Now we've got this powerful thing called segments and data. So we're going to do 2 very simple ones, right? For most people, this is more than enough until you get to $10, $20 million. One, your prospects, people who haven't purchased purchased, and 2, the people who have purchased. We're going to separate those 2 people out into 2 segments. Okay. And I know that you're like, some of you guys listening going, well, of course, Jimmy. No, you'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised. I see a lot of accounts every day. So we're going to send, because everyone just batches everything together and say engaged audience, right? That's not right. You can't do that. They're different people. You need to treat them differently. All right. And then number 3 is strategy. Here's the thing. If your strategy is something like, I look at major holidays and today's National Donut Day and I'm going to mail National Donut Day and I'm a t-shirt brand, that's not strategy. That's just you latching onto some kind of strategic playbook. Strategy is coming up with a sale, an event, tying your social media, your marketing, your front of the website and everything together and being a part of the strategy. Retention marketing requires strategy. And if you don't have strategy, it won't matter how pretty, great, or terrible your emails are. You won't do well no matter what. And the reality of that is very simple. Strategy is such an important thing. So if I'm going strategic and I've got, for example, and I'm going to use a simple example because we just had this Mother's Day, right? If I have Mother's Day, what is my product? First part of the strategy. Am I a product that you buy on Mother's Day or am I a product that you ship before Mother's Day, right? Okay, I want to do a Mother's Day sale. I'm going to do it 1 week before Mother's Day because you don't want to put the pressure on people the day of Mother's Day. It's not going to work. They're out celebrating with their moms already. They already bought the gift. So a week before, I'm going to set it up. But I'm not going to set it up where I'm going to send one email, Mother's Day is coming, right? We're going to set up an event, right? We think about an event, just like a store. We're going to launch the sale. We're going to continue and remind them of the sale. And then we're going to close the sale and create an event of 3, 4, 5, 6 days of email and SMS cadence. And then we're going to stop and close it, right? And then you're going to do that again and again. Simple strategy, but that strategy alone would change the way that your business probably runs today because a lot of people, I email on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But why? What's the strategy? Just because I mail Monday, Wednesday? Well, you're leaving a lot of money on the book, right? So to me, that is the fundamentals. Those 3 things are the fundamentals of setting up a good retention program until you're probably about 20 million. Until then, like, okay, look, if your brand starts to have a lot of categorization, a lot of different categories and all that stuff, you can do that. If you want to take it next level and say, but Jimmy, this isn't enough for me right now. Okay, well, I'll give you another thing. Simple, retarget your clickers. It's very simple. What I always tell people is the layer that most people forget is that you should have automation set up or just the inherent belief in campaigns that you set up of segments that are like anyone who clicked on a certain product should be categorized, right? So if you have 4 products, men's, women's, clothes, women's, you should have those tags and those should be able to have follow-ups behind them to categorize to get those people who clicked and did not purchase because they showed you tremendous intent. Something happened. And I guarantee you a second mail to those people will relive them, a second SMS, whatever it is. It will literally duplicate usually what your first campaign did. So there's your tidbit on like, how can I take it further, right? And that's really it. I mean, outside of that, retention strategy is audience management and strategy. Those are what matters. Really, the tool, it helps, but it doesn't really. I mean, it helps to have the good tool and it helps to have the right tool. But if you blame your tool for why you're not making money, that's usually not the right answer. The right answer is you should be looking at probably number 3, which is you probably have lack of strategy within your business.
Yep.
So
yeah. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, because like you said, you can go so many layers deep, and some of those might be great, right? Like I love the like, you know, okay, this is our best selling product, and 80% of the people that buy product A are willing to buy product B. So sure, everybody that bought product A, okay, we'll have a small sequence that goes out to them promoting product B at X date after they buy product A. Those things are great, and I love those little tactics. But yeah, the further you break these things out, I mean, I signed into a client account the other day, and they had like, I don't even know. They had like 100 different lists or something crazy, and they're not an 8-figure. They're not a 9-figure. They're in the 8 figures, which is like, okay, I'll forgive you a little bit, but like if we're using all of these, there's going to be wires crossed no matter what, and it's just going to be a bad customer experience at the end of the day, depending on how you send out whatever it is, your lists or your segment, you know, your sequences, whatever it is. And so, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I like the thoughtful stuff too. I got a really great one this Mother's Day that I really appreciated from a brand that was just like, hey, we know how sensitive Mother's Day is for a lot of people. And so if you just reply with, it wasn't stop, but it was like reply with this one word, like skip, I think it was, or something. Like we'll skip you from sending you any other promotions kind of during this holiday. Yeah. And I thought that was a really nice kind of thoughtful thing that I don't see a lot of brands doing as well, which I appreciated, but
it seems to be a trend lately, by the way.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. And so love what we're talking about. I think super important. Maybe let's talk about surveys really briefly here, because I think that that's another very interesting thing too. I say anyone doing over 7 figures should be doing surveys no matter what. Probably before then, they should be thinking about that. Like, where does that live, and how important you think, that aspect of the business is as well?
This all comes back to like not all traffic exists the same. Not all traffic means the same. Not all data means the same thing. And again, we as marketers, we tend to lean on numbers and big numbers, and the better the numbers, the better we feel. And what I'm talking about in this case is an opt-in rate, right? We talk about an opt-in rate. Oh man, my opt-in rate gets 8%, 12%, 4%, whatever that might be, right? And inherently, if you take a survey, a lot of times your opt-in rate decreases often, right? If it's not engaging enough, it's not good enough. It's very simple. It does, because you're asking them to do more stuff. And how many times have you ever started doing a survey and then quit in the middle? I do it all. I quit all the time when it's too long, right? So you don't know what that too long is. You've got to test that. But here's the difference in why I do believe in the reason why surveys, quizzes, and just getting more information. And I know they call this first party data, zero party data, whatever the heck you want to call this. It's always information because you can use it to do things back at them. And then you should be, and that's what I say, like use their data and information to go back and attack them or target them, right? I talked about it earlier. The click is a powerful intent signal. It's probably the most powerful. But you know what the second one is? Data that they gave you and selected to you. That would be your second most powerful intent signal, because they didn't just give you your email address in this case. They spent a minute, let's just say, going and answering a couple questions and telling you what they want. And so it's important if you can take that data and look, here's the thing again, and we mentioned it earlier. If you try to solve for everybody, it's never going to work. I say solve for the 80%. Where's your masses of your audience? And based on those, create personalized flows, probably for your quizzes, for example, if you have that, right? And try to optimize around it. Oftentimes, though, what I've seen is, what's that called again? Oftentimes what people see is that they just want to do all of it or they want to do none of it, which is part of the problem as well, too. And that's where I always preach, even within a team, I say, we solve for the 80%. Like, let's focus on 80%. We got to do well and excellent, but there's just an 80%. And in this case, again, solve for your top categories, your top answers, your top repeated answers, because it should follow that trend. But I do think that it's great. I think a lot of things are better than a pop-up, a simple pop-up or a simple ask for email. I think intent is different all across. So an intent to someone who pops up and opts in most likely will never engage with your brand if they never make that purchase because they were just there for the coupon. Someone who might take a quiz, has more intent. They have more interest in the brand. They have more interest in the problem you're solving ultimately. And by finishing that, they've given you permission to learn about them, and they've given you permission to mail them about that or to communicate to them about that, right? To me, that's pretty dang strong intent. So again, just like double opt-in versus single opt-in, it's no different. Like, I could argue for both sides of it, but the reality of it at the end of the day is today, with the amount of mass and quality and size, right? Data is the most important thing. And the better you can get data is you should sacrifice things like a conversion rate opt-in for data, because data is probably more powerful. And I bet you at the end of the day, if you're doing it properly, that data you're collecting from the people on a survey or quiz are probably going to give you a better result than probably if a direct pop-in.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah. Love it. Great advice. Just taking a step back, super curious, what excites you the most in the year ahead, either in the e-com industry, in the email world, or within your own marketing?
I think if I work into the future, I mean, obviously it's AI, ChatGPT, Bard, all these things happening. I think it's really interesting. I'm a technology guy, right? I love future and new technology. I've been jamming on, playing with it, trying to learn it, trying to figure out how it could be integral into the business one day, right? Like, I think I'm just excited about where it's going to allow people to do. Like, for me, I look at myself as like a products and idea guy, right? And I come up with a lot of vision. But what AI could potentially enable me is to produce more stuff. Imagine if I can produce more software, produce more solutions, produce more of this, produce more of that, like, I just think it can amplify production for people. And I always look at it as a 10x accelerator of humans. And I know people are scared about it getting automated. Well, if you feel like you're worried about getting automated, you're probably not in the right role right now. You need to start working on your next career path. It happens all the time.
True.
I mean, we all have to be honest about it, right? It's the people get scared that tend to get scared for no reason. You should just be focusing on, how do I make sure I'm ahead of this? Like, I'm not scared of it. I think it's going to 10x me. I think it's going to make me even more powerful as a human being.
Yep. Same. Oh, I love it. I'm embracing I'm like, give me more.
You should embrace this. Who knows? Yeah, it could be a bubble and people are talking. Sure, it's a bubble, but who cares? Get involved. One of these bubbles are not going to be a bubble again. Remember when the internet came out? That was a bubble too. And that bubble still exists right now, right? So who knows?
Yeah, love it. Last question, book recommendation. Anything you've been reading lately that you recommend, or any maybe business books that have kind of changed your career the most?
That's a heavy question. I'm gonna lean back. I mean, just looking around my room, I've got all sorts sorts of books going on over here. I don't read that much, obviously, honestly. Like, I'm not as big of a reader, but there's books I just loved, I've latched onto. I'll kind of give a shout out because I think this is always great. Delivering Happiness. That's my book that I will always be a core foundational book on my business. And that's Tony Hsieh's book, the late founder of Zappos that passed away. But his book is really interesting, just learning about how they thought about customer service. And especially since I'm listening to a bunch of people in e-commerce here and how you should be thinking about it and why it should be an interesting channel for you. They are literally the story behind why customer service is important and how you can, if you have no other differentiator because you all sell the same shirts, sell clothes, there is one differentiator you can always create, and that's customer service. And that does keep people coming back and purchasing. So yeah, let's talk Delivering Happiness. Definitely a great book. Fun
Love
read, great guy. And ultimately, I think that he left his impact in the world by teaching people customer service. And I personally believe that I am one of the people who have learned from that. So I would give that book as a great recommendation.
Love it. Awesome. I know you're putting out dynamite content all over the place. Where are some good places people can follow you and follow along your journey and all the tips and everything you're blasting?
Sure. I live in two places in the social media world today, LinkedIn and Twitter. I do a lot of tweeting. So LinkedIn, obviously, it's my name, Jimmy Kim. You can find me, Jimmy Kim Sendlane, I guess. And then on Twitter, it's Yo Jimmy Kim. So YOJIMMYKIM. You can find me there. I tweet very often about a lot of strategic and different things. I challenge people on thinking about the future and really talk about just a little bit of everything. So if you want to engage, find me there. I do respond to DMs. If you're going to sell me, I might not respond to DMs, but at least say hello before you try to sell me and maybe I'll respond. So let me know how I can help.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. It's been an awesome episode. Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Samir. Thanks for having me.